This is me in the workshop. So many projects going on at the same time. It's like trying to juggle 17 plates at once. And no matter how much of a good day it is, you're dropping like literally 10 to 15 of them. 2 of them are going to stay in the air. And what does that mean? It means you got to pick up the other 10 to 15 that are broken, glue them back together, and try again tomorrow. And that gets frustrating, and it feels like you're not getting anywhere. But what really happens is each time you drop a plate and it breaks and you glue it back together, it's a new plate. It has break points and scars and seams where you can see where it was re-glued, and that gives it so much more character. And that's the whole point of this art. There's just layers and layers of broken pieces that were glued back together and repainted and reconfigured into something different. So to show you, these pieces all need to be base coated. I base coated this one right here. It's drying before I could do anything else. And I don't just do a straight base coat. I do like a blend. So that in itself has like 7 colors in it. You can mostly see the yellow, the green, and the black. But there's subtle hints of turquoise, 3 different greens, a little bit of orange. And you can see each of these I've just these sitting around, because the other thing is when I don't have enough people here to help me at the same time, I just end up putting stuff everywhere. So these 2 base coated pieces that are going to be the background for pieces. I mean, look at all the colors in that. But they're just sitting here hanging out. You got this one, this one, this one. You notice I try to vary the colors. I like to, first of all, it's just visually feeds me. But second of all, I wanted to visually feed everyone with the full spectrum of all the colors available. Obviously, everybody has colors they favor more than others, but I try to push myself past that. So this is a piece that's close to being finished. I have to paint these new 3 bottom pieces that I curated. I think this one I'm going to cut again to make it into 2 pieces to separate it out. Here's a whole bunch of pieces that one of my assistants cut and did the first round of smoothing, but with the router you only get so much. You still get some of these weird sharp knife edges that you have to go back with other forms of sanding tools and machines and get every little sharp edge, every little rough edge out, because I don't want anybody. I want a 5-year-old to be able to brush up against this art with his shoulder when it's on the wall and not get a little abrasion. Like, I want grown men to be able to lift these pieces and move them to a new location, and if one of them slips and loses his grip, I don't want him to get scratched. I'm pushing the boundaries here by making 3-dimensional art that you can hang on your wall. It's usually you go 2-dimensional art is completely flat. That's the biggest seller. It's for centuries, because it's easy, because you can put it anywhere, because it doesn't take up too much room space, hardly any, but it also makes the room look so much more beautiful. But then sculpture, it jumps to sculpture. When you get to 3D, you have something that's like an entire piece of furniture that takes up an entire corner of a room, or maybe even the centerpiece of a room. And so sculpture doesn't sell as well because not as many people have room for a lot of pieces. You have to have the dedicated space for that. But I'm merging these 2. I have sculpture that's wall art. It's only going to come off of the wall maybe an inch or 2. So it's not really taking up any space in the room more than a regular painting, because a regular painting, the frame itself will come off the wall, up to 1.5 inches sometimes, or more. So it's not taking up any more space, but it has a sculptural element of being 3D, which means it's a ton more work. Like, you look at this piece here. This is 3 layers of mostly 3/4 inch wood that was painted over several times till I could get the blend. I still am not happy with every part of this. Straight up, at first I was really excited about it. Now I feel like it's a little bit too whimsical. It looks like an aquarium. It doesn't look as edgy as I wanted. Now the back of it here I think looks amazing, and I kind of want to just use the back, but that means all that work I did on, and my assistants and I helped me with all these, pieces. Well, what does that all go to waste? I mean, these pieces are not only glued in with heavy industrial glue, but some of them are very filled in, very fine metal pins, screws, very carefully applied in key places to hold the structure and give it strength. So, again, if some little kid runs by the art and bangs it with his shoulder, he's not going to knock one of the pieces off because it was just held by a very thin layer of glue. So it's a ton of work, but the satisfaction when you see a finished piece is just amazing. Just needs to be glued and nailed and screwed together. But I mean, this one is pretty exciting. This is, and again, I had all these different colored rings painted very specifically, some of them with like 7 to 11 different colors of paint blended in. That's not just a yellow orange. There's a lot of different colors going on in there, and then the edges are all singed in black. But this was from the vision board. It's easy to doodle, and that's the fun part. Like, this was the vision for that design. That's how it started. And so many of these, like some of these right here, you can see are starting to come alive in some of these pieces here, down here. Like, it's always, I make a really specific frame that nobody else has, and it fits perfectly with the painting. And just when I'm ready to put it together and make it great, I put it down on the table and I say, wait a minute, it looks even cooler if I spread it out like that. Well, spreading it out like that sounds great in theory, but now you have to do a ton more work. How do you attach it? Do you put metal pieces in the back, or do you put the entire thing on a larger black frame that have to cut? So it's just like this one right here, I curated and cut all these individual pieces. And now I don't even like it, because I don't like the fact that it's forced into a rectangle. It doesn't feel as whimsical. That rectangle feels like it's pressured, and I wish I could have done the whole thing from scratch and made it of a like marquee shape, more of a like this one behind me, like this one right back here is less of a rectangle, if I can angle that right. Or this, even this one, that was a regular rectangle, and we cut the corner off of 2 different corners very, very harshly and turned it into this, what I think is I think it just adds so much to it. Rectangle here, but that's just total chaos. These were all individual pieces I was going to use for something. And one of my friends looked at all of them on the table when they were massively painted and said, that's a piece of art right there. And you got to just hang that the way it is, instead of taking this and trying to make it into like tons of other little pieces. So we did. This right here, see this guy down here? This is just paint. This was the background from when all of these pieces were spray painted, especially the intermediate pieces, these turquoise flat pieces in the middle. When they were spray painted with all those different colors I talk about, I put this canvas down underneath, so now this is a piece by itself. But do I keep it like this, or do I add some 3-dimensional, maybe pieces of glass so you can see through it? Do I give it like an unusual frame? I don't know. These are all questions that they're really fun when I draw them out on paper, but then when I go to execute, we're talking hours of work to just get a few pieces fully shaped and sanded and then repainted so they fit just right. So it's a challenge. It's a much more physical art. I'm not sitting in a chair like with a paintbrush, which I love to do. I mean, this piece right here, I felt like I made it too bland, so I put it on a canvas and tried to touch up the colors in there. I mean, on a canvas. I put it twice on an easel and tried to touch up the colors, and I literally put on a TV show so I could just chill in a chair while I touched up the colors for a couple hours. And that's relaxing. I'd love to do with that all day. But like this piece here, these were all going to fit. Like I said, these were all going to fit tight against the canvas, and that would have been really cool because they're curated an original weird frame. But as I stretched them out on the black table, I said, they look good separated. So I built an entire black backing so that they could be separated, and you could see that effect of the black behind it. This one, I'm still working on. I'm not sure if I'm going to add more layers to it. This one, my assistant and I did together, and that was really fun. I basically took the canvas that she started and just kept adding pieces and adding pieces. And so you have the weird frame that's 3D, the pieces I specifically cut for it, but then you have little pieces glued on that you can see are popping off the canvas. This one's just straight up fun. This is probably the easiest one. I literally drew it. I had my assistant cut it and sand it, and then I just spray painted all the pieces, stuck them together, nailed them and glued them, and that was it. Not all the pieces can be done that quickly, that fun. This one took absolutely ever, and it's probably in my top 1 or 2 favorite. And it took so long because I originally didn't know what I was doing, and I did these pieces are very thin veneer. They're like 16th inch to 1/8 inch, very unstable on, which basically flakes forever. No matter how much you sand it, it just keeps flaking and flaking like a piece of mica. So it's not stable. So what I had to do was curate larger pieces of plywood that were the exact same as these 6 shapes, glue them in the back, but they had to be slightly smaller so you can't see them. So you can't see them until you come around the edge. I had to glue them to the back, but more than that, this thing was so fragile, it would have snapped in half. Behind each of these purple silvery pieces are heavy hardware, like $40 worth of intense metal pieces that you can kind of see around the edges of some of them, like right there. Some of these metal pieces in the back are holding it together like this entire, they're just coming out everywhere. So on the back of it, I had to put it face down on a piece of foam and lay out all these metal pieces to hold it together, and then put literally 2 giant cans of adhesive, like heavy carpenter's adhesive, like this liquid nails stuff, and just smear it all over the back, over those metal pieces, and then sandwich the newly cut thicker pieces of plywood on top of that. So it was like an Oreo cookie. You had the original thin piece of wood, then this thick layer of adhesive that was like the cream in the Oreo cookie, and then another piece of plywood on top. All that had to be clamped and held for a couple days. And then I had to go back with the glue gun and go around and around and around the seams for days until I got it really smooth. I still don't like it. I'm still gonna go back and get in here with a black paintbrush and make that totally black. So on the odd chance somebody does come all the way to the edge of this piece, they're gonna see it's still going to look good. It's not going to look unfinished on the back. And art doesn't have to look finished on the back. I think most art is not. You look at the backs of everything from canvases to frames, and it looks unfinished on the back, but I don't know. I take pride. I like making things look good all the way around. Like when I would make necklaces, the clasp doesn't have to look good. Most people are not going to see it, but if you make it look good, it's like this extra special thing to the person who owns it. Every time they pick it up to put it on, they touch the clasp for a minute. Or every time someone goes to take one of these pieces off the wall and transfer it to another part of their place or sell it, they're going to see the backing. And the backing, I'm trying to make the backing look visually pleasing also. So like here, tons of pieces. Cut, sanded, ready for me to inspect and do some extra sanding. What are they going to end up in? I couldn't tell you. They're probably going to end up in dozens of different pieces. Here's some pieces that were cut and not sanded yet. Here's a ton of pieces that were cut and sanded but still need a touch up, and that's why they're on this table with this advanced Dremel type tool. And then you just have tons of stuff. This is something I sketched out. I don't know if it's ever going to be cut out because it's so much work. There's literally like 100 little holes in there that have to be cut very specifically, which is difficult no matter what tool you use to get all those little curves just right. And then all these little edges need to be sanded. But if that worked, it would it would go behind this piece, which will be the actual frame. So you'll see all those little tiny cuts coming out behind it. And then, you know, even here we have more stuff we're working on. And even this is a piece that's going to become something. This was, how did I come up with this pattern? I literally was spray painting tons and tons of little pieces that I was going to use in other stuff. And I just kept layering them, putting them down, layering them, putting them down, and adding more layers. And luckily I was thought ahead enough to put this really cool marquee shape. Let's see if I can stand that up so you can see it. It's this really cool marquee shape that's huge. And this is a piece of Luan, which again is not a very stable wood. The Luan is wrapped in canvas though, and it's glued tightly on the back. So now it is stable because those edges can't fray. They're protected by the canvas, so to speak. And it's probably gonna, whoa. And I just dropped it. It's fine, but it's probably gonna be given a frame also. Notice it fits very nicely on this frame. That wasn't planned, I just, here too. I have very specific shapes that I like. One of my favorite shapes in the entire world is this leaf shape where it's kind of like a marquee, but it has an inner curve at two different corners. There's got to be a name for that shape because you see it a lot in stuff, but I don't know, there's something about the balance and asymmetry of that I used to make earrings with that shape all the time, and it's just one of the best shapes. Anyway, and this is pretty much my favorite at the moment. I did this almost completely in one day. I had some of the pieces already made, but cut all those little tiles. I don't know, there's just something about the balance and the weirdness of it that's just perfect. That's pretty much my favorite at the moment. This is probably my second favorite. And then we come in here. This is supposed to be the break. You know, there's the couch, there's the TV, but what do we have here? Here's the easel. And here's tons and tons of blocks so we can, you know, give little pieces of free art out to everybody, whoever finds them. You know, and then I give specially printed labels that I made to glue onto these little blocks. Some of them have fun little phrases and inspirational sayings. Some of them are just this is art by me, and it's weird, and I hope you find it to be as weird as I do. I hope you find it to be even weirder. I hope you find it to be shockingly weird. I hope it upsets you. I hope it offends your sensibilities just a little bit, just in a good way. And this is something that's almost finished now. The last few pieces are drying. This was something in a previous video you saw me. This is watercolor paper that I just kept spray painting layers and layers on, and I finally cut it up into shapes, glued it onto wood, cut the wood up, sanded the wood. All these wood pieces fit together like a puzzle. I was going to have them slightly separated so you could see the perfect fit. And then I just totally went out and mixed them up so they're totally not fitted any particular way. I have little wooden dowels in a matrix behind them. This whole frame is something I used to use back in the day to hold jewelry pieces. It was covered in a white thing that had little earrings poked into it, and that was ripped off, and now it's repurposed. So just like a lot of fun stuff happening, but it gets wild up in here. I really need like 10 helpers just to keep me sane, and right now I'm by myself, so it's just you and me. It's just you guys watching, keeping me sane, so I feel like I'm not just talking to myself all day as I cut these pieces and sand them and paint them and cut them and sand them and glue them and paste them and sand them and affix metal to the back and then look at them and decide I want to change the whole thing. But I'm grateful. I mean, what other time and place in history do you have access to all this stuff to do fun stuff like this? I mean, maybe everybody at any time could have done stuff like this, but it's just like the range of color and materials that you can play with. It's kind of overwhelming. It's almost, I think it actually would be easier back in the day because you'd be far more limited and you'd have to focus more, but I'm not complaining. Super fun. Hope to see you guys in more videos. And for you, keep making art. I'm literally gluing popsicle sticks together. I'm gluing toothpicks together. I'm adding like little wooden pieces that were made for construction that like come in a pack of 100 because they're just little tiny pieces of things. Like I'm just cutting them up and painting them and gluing them together. And you could literally go to the dollar store and get a whole bunch of popsicle sticks and paint them and glue them together and make something that I might find more exciting than what I'm doing. So go have fun. And the hardest part about all this, the hardest part is not sanding, gluing. It's not getting materials. It's not finding helpers. The hardest part of this entire thing is not judging myself, because every time I start a piece, I say, oh no, I want it this way. Oh no, I want it this. Oh, if only I had it this way. And when I let go and just have fun and just start sticking shapes together and trusting my intuition and moving faster, and it doesn't look perfect, that's when it really gets exciting. But you can only do that if you stop judging yourself and you let yourself have fun like a kid. The hardest thing to do is just to let go. But once you do, man, nobody can stop you. Once you stop judging yourself and you don't worry about anybody else judging you, the amount of amazingly fun stuff you can put out really fast will blow your mind. All right, have a great day, guys.